Hello, everybody, and today we are going to be reading Human FNAF X Listener 3 up in here. So we're currently in chapter 7, but we're going to go back a chapter for the purpose of the recap. Luckily, the recap is over here, so I don't have to go back. But anyways, so long story short, going into chapter 26, we ended up coming face to face with our brother, who we ended up talking to and giving our apologies, and him doing the same, about upsetting us. And after a lighthearted but good ending to a conversation, we eventually, as we traverse and whatnot, end up also talking to Mangle and explaining to him why we were upset. Not because of what he necessarily did or how he acted towards us. It's more so of memories that came through, about him bringing us to a very specific garden, which the original Bonnie took us to, which made us quite upset at the sad but beautiful memory. And eventually, after you also had, thankfully, a good end to that conversation, you ended up laying down next to each other while watching some movies on the couch and whatnot. It was fun, blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden, you got woken up eventually. You woke up, see that Bonnie was basically treading in there like he was a boss. And basically, very, very long story short, dragging you to work, legit kidnapping you and taking you to work. To which we got a little bit of revenge when Cece, basically, when she found out what happened, beat the literal shit out of him. And then eventually, it was to the point where we had to help, medically, because one of her jewelry pieces got stuck out, in his, skin. It was a crazy work object, but I was like, damn, she whooped his ass. But then I was like, damn, she really whooped your ass. But that was kind of the end towards chapter 26 a little bit, and whatnot. But anywho, before we get started on the real chapter, going ahead on, there should be some warnings popping up if there is any right about now. Chapter 27. Your POV. Put her down, Bonbon. Nope. I sweat dropped quietly, frowning in discontent as Bonbon nuzzled his face into my neck. Ever since we left parts and service room, Bonbon refused to put me down. He was oddly cheery, and it kind of weirded me out. I wasn't used to seeing this side of him. Bonbon was sitting down in the office chair, holding me, cradled in his arms on his lap. Every time I tried to get out of his hold, he'd only tighten his grip on me. He's been like this for almost half an hour. A vein throbbed on the side of Fred's head, and he looked infuriated. He was about to open his mouth and say something when another voice roared from the hallway behind him. I found you, you absolute prick! Fred slowly craned his neck over to look behind him with a low growl, his blue eyes alight with fury. Bonbon only glanced up slightly in dull curiosity. Stomping his way into the office room was Mangle, an angry frown on his face. He stormed up to Bonbon and I, glaring immensely at the bright blue bunny who was holding me. I shrunk back, away from Mangle's unwavering gaze. Bonbon only smirked. Oh, you finally made it back, huh? Mangle let out an animalistic growl, tear out of his throat. Put her down. Bonnie hummed, grinning mischievously as he softly nipped my earlobe. I shivered slightly, a small gasp leaving my mouth. His emerald eyes lit up with approval. Then he turned back to Mangle with a smirk. I don't think so. Mangle's amber-colored orbs seemed to blaze. Why, you little... Mangle? Fred chided angrily. Don't do anything stupid while he's got YN with him. I looked away quietly, a small blush on my cheeks. Moments like these with the toys reminded me so much of the originals, and I couldn't help myself. Mangle groaned in annoyance, then glared immensely at Bonbon, who chuckled lowly in victory. I sighed, deciding to finally stop letting him do what he wanted, and I lifted my hand up to his ear and pinched it harshly. Ow! He yelped. Let go, woman! Damn you! I said not to do that again! Both Fred and Mango laughed darkly, smirking to themselves as Bonbon got what he deserved. Stop being a jerk! I chastised him, letting go of his ear and finishing it with a huff. And don't do that to me again! A loud crash resounded from much further down the hallway leading to the office. Everyone turning to look down it. Bonbon immediately tightened his grip on me. Fred stepped closer to the doorway, his hands curling into fists by his sides. Another crash caused the walls to shake and the lights to flicker slightly. It was silent in the office as we waited for another noise. I could tell that even Bonbon was tensed up. He glared down the hallway. He told me on the way here that they had some form of night vision, but not really. They could see much better in the dark than a normal human can, and I'm sure whatever was in the hallway, he and the other toys in the room could see. Fred's fist shook at his side, and he looked down slightly. He didn't turn around as he spoke through gritted teeth. Mangle, get Wyan away from here. Use the vents. Whatever the hell you need to, but get her out. What? I asked quietly. Who's there? Why do I have to... Fred's shoulders tensed as another, closer, crashing noise sounded through the office. Before I could even interject, Bonbon let me go as Mangle picked me up in his arms and walked quietly towards the vents. I looked up to Mangle with a slightly frightened look, worried about what the hell was going on. Had Vincent come back? Was it Spring? Who was it? Mangle only frowned at me sadly, setting me down in front of the vent and urging me to call through it. I gave a faint whimper as the noises got louder, and turned to go through the vent, Mangle following. Oh, goodness gracious. Third POV. So, you're actually alive, huh? Bonbon stood beside Fred, his hands in his pockets as he looked to the figure hidden in the hallway with a scowl. The two toys were on high alert, ready to fight at the drop of a hat. They knew exactly who was there, and what they were doing here. But they were still surprised. The figure swayed side to side slightly, seemingly unsteady on their feet. Two glowing eyes glared back at the toys with unyielding rage in them. Where is she? The figure's low voice questioned, their tone making the question sound like a warning. Both toys remained silent, sharing a silent stare down with the figure. The newcomer let out a low hiss, taking a shaky step forward. I asked you a question. Where is YN? She's safe. That'll ease your mind. Fred stated coldly, blue eyes stern. Then he continued with a definite tone, but I won't tell you where she is. The figure's eyes grew wide in surprise, then narrowed in absolute anger. The figure took another step towards the toys, until he was under the light of the office, now revealing fully revealing his identity. I'll ask you again. Where is she? He darted forward, punching Bonbon fiercely in the stomach, sending him crashing into the desk behind him. He turned to grab Fred's throat in a chokehold, lifting the bear slightly off the ground. Neither toy had any time to react. Fred looked down through squinted eyes, thinking to himself just how much this person had changed. He had never thought it would affect him as much as it seemed to. Even still, the stubborn bear stayed silent, further infuriating the familiar animatronic. The light seemed to dim around the bear's eyes, but he refused to give in, even though he would only come back in a few minutes. But the newcomer was on a warpath and wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. The newcomer threw Fred to the floor violently, his mind going hazy as his head hit the ground. Black spots dotted his vision, and he thought to himself about the first time he had fought him, and how he had lost just as easily then, too. He fell limp, unable to keep the temporary darkness away any longer. The newcomer quickly losing interest in Fred and turning to the blue, bunny-eared toy across the room. Bonbon struggled to stand, having the wind knocked out of him just by one blow. The newcomer turned away with a disapproving scowl, then turning to storm his way out of the office and back down the hall. "Hey!" Bonbon called. The newcomer turned to face him. Bonbon growled lowly. "She doesn't even give a damn about you guys. She's forgotten all about you." The newcomer's eyes burned with hatred. Slowly stalking back towards the bunny, Bonbon continued. "She has us now," he hissed, glaring back at the animatronic. "She doesn't need you." He was interrupted as the animatronic kicked him hard in the stomach. Bonbon slouching over in pain. "Be quiet." The newcomer growled. "You don't know what the fuck you're talking about." "You really want her to see you like this?" Jack stood in the doorway. His gaze hardened as he stared at the animatronic human. The animatronic looked even more infuriated just by his presence, forgetting about Bonbon as he marched towards Jack. Jack's face was kept neutral, watching the newcomer stumble as he attempted to make his way over to him. Jack sighed, watching the animatronic struggle to stay standing. The newcomer let out a hiss, glaring up at Jack as he slowly regained his balance. Jack sighed quietly. "I don't want to fight." "Liar!" the newcomer roared, lunging for Jack. Jack quickly stepped aside to dodge, and the newcomer sent him a fury glare. "I have to see her." Your POV. "Angle?" I whispered again. He had disappeared from me a few minutes ago, and had left me sitting alone in the storage room in the dark. I shivered slightly, feeling suddenly cold. Turning to look at a certain spot in the room, I remembered vividly where I had found the originals again on my first night back. I looked away, feeling ashamed at myself for not being able to do anything to help them. I had no clue where they even were, and it was killing me. After everything they had done for me, and I couldn't do a single thing to help them in their time of need. I thought back to the toys with a deep sigh, feeling worried for them. I still had no idea who was in the office, and the loud noises coming from deeper inside the pizzeria left me on edge. I was honestly scared for them. I've never seen the toys look so unnerved before. Had Vincent come back again? Was it in the shadows? Spring? I was interrupted from my thoughts as small footsteps got closer to the door. "Wyan, are you in there?" BB's shaky voice called from the outside of the room. "Yeah, I'm here," I called back, stumbling around in the dark to make my way to the door. BB opened the door with a worried look on his face. When he saw me, he only frowned sadly. He didn't get to you yet," he sighed, quietly under his breath, and in what I think was relief, I barely heard him. "You know what's going on? Who's there?" I asked quickly, BB shutting the door behind him as he walked over to me. He looked up hesitantly, his eyes dull and sad. No one. Don't worry about it. It's just one of the shadows." BB looked away from me, tears threatening to spill from his watery eyes. I knew he was lying, and I wasn't sure whether or not it was to keep me calm or not, but I needed to know what was going on. I wouldn't let what happened to the originals happen to the toys. I'd never forgive myself if I let that happen a second time. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves before looking at BB with a serious expression on my face. "BB?" I asked in a more low tone. "Who's there?" "Who's here?" He whimpered quietly. Another crash made me jump and lose my composure, a small, pathetic yelp escaping my lips. The noises outside suddenly stopped. I froze, listening anxiously as unsteady footsteps found their way to the door in front of me. BB ran up to me, holding on to me for dear life, letting a few tears drip into my shirt. I could see the person's shadow under the door. I clutched the familiar switchblade in my back pocket instinctively. The door shook as someone from the other side tried to open it. BB whined as the door creaked open, and my eyes widened in horror as I recognized the face staring back at me. My heart stopped beating as we looked at each other. My hand that had been clutching the switchblade now limp at my side. I stood in shock, staring silently at him in disbelief. His once tidy form of clothes were torn and bloody. He had bags under his eyes now. His hair was messy, in disarray. Dirt and dried blood splattered across his face. He stood warily, as if his legs were ready to get out on him at any minute. His eyes, that were once a bright color, now slightly dulled. "Goldie?" He smiled. I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt my eyes well up with tears as I gazed at him. He looked like he had treaded through hell and back. He was smiling. He was smiling at me. Were my eyes playing tricks on me? He opened his arms wide, and I immediately ran towards him, almost knocking his unsteady form on the ground as I wrapped my arms around him tightly. Goldie laughed lightly, putting his hands on the back of my head, shushing me in a soft tone. He wrapped his other arm around me in a tight yet gentle hug. "Goldie," I whined, burying my face into his shoulder. I tightened my grip around him fiercely, as if he would disappear if I let go. He chuckled lightly, softly stroking my hair as he smiled. "I miss you too. I missed you too." We stood there together like that for a while, his blue eyes gently gazing down at me as I continued to cry into his shoulder. I thought back to what I saw on the video, the injuries he had sustained, how he and the others were so critically wounded. But here he was in front of me. I had my doubts, knowing that I would never be strong enough to help them, and I didn't even know where they had gone to begin with. Seeing him now, alive, though not necessarily well, made my heart leap. It gave me hope that I could see the others again, too. Goldie stood silently and content, humming gentle words into my ear as he tried to soothe me. After a while, I looked up at him through my very teary eyes and asked, "How did you get here? The toys told me what happened." He shook his head, closing his eyes in thought. He opened them again as he looked at me with a frown. "Don't concern yourself with it. I'm more worried about you." Goldie looked me up and down and asked worriedly, "Did the toys hurt you? Why are you in here?" "We wouldn't hurt her." I turned to look behind me, seeing BB standing in the middle of the room, shaking and crying. His hands were rolled into fists as he sniffled as he continued. "We would never hurt her," he repeated sadly. Why was he so upset? "BB," I said softly, trying to walk closer to him. But before I could move an inch, Goldie grabbed me by my waist and pulled me closer to him, then stepped in front of me defensively. I looked back up to see that Jack now stood behind BB, and he stared at me sorrowfully. "Don't touch her," Goldie warned, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm not going to." He sighed deeply, placing a hand on BB's shoulder. He looked down at BB, then at me. "I suppose that's it, then." The raw emotion in Jack's eyes made me let out a silent gasp. Goldie hissed, "Stop talking to her like you haven't done anything. What did you do to her while we were gone?" I looked at my blonde friend nervously. He would be so upset with me if he knew what I had been getting along with them. With a shaky breath, I placed a hand on Goldie's shoulder, and he looked at me warily through the corner of his eye. "Nothing, Goldie. They haven't done anything wrong." His eyes narrowed. "I highly doubt that." "It's the truth," I murmured quietly, stepping closer to him to give him another hug from behind. He stiffened slightly, still glaring at Jack. "I would have been taken along with you if it had not been for him and the other toys," I whispered in his ear, catching his attention. "Please stop." Goldie was silent for a moment, then twisted around to face me with a neutral expression. "He's the reason Springtrap couldn't find you?" I nodded slowly. Goldie then took a deep breath, then sent a vicious glare at Jack before glancing at me again. "All right, I won't do anything now, but only because you asked me to. But if they even mess up once, I won't hesitate to give them hell. That's all I can promise you for now." I sent him a smile. "Thank you, Goldie." He gave me a faint smile back, though it was fleeting. I guess this was good enough for the time being. "How did you escape?" Jack asked lowly. I looked towards him with uncertainty. He looked almost angry at Goldie, who gladly returned his feelings. Goldie hesitated, but he did reply, facing me. "Since I can teleport, Vincent had the shadows give me sedatives on an hourly basis to keep me asleep. One of them messed up on the dose and gave me too little of it, and I woke up. As soon as I was awake, my first reaction was to go find you and make sure you were safe." Goldie faltered slightly, and I let him lean on me for a moment before he could regain his balance. Apparently, even as an animatronic, the effect of being sedated for such a long time wasn't quick to fade. He could barely even stand. He shook his head slightly before continuing. "I teleported back here as soon as I could, and, well, here I am now." Goldie looked at me sullenly. "I'm sorry. I don't know how everyone else is doing. I've been asleep since what happened with the Springtrap, and we have all been kept in separate rooms." I bit my lip, then sighed deeply, looking up to Goldie happily. "It's all right. I'm just happy you're here." A faint blush made its way to Goldie's cheeks. His pale face painted a light pink. He didn't look flustered, though. He only gave me a sheepish smile. "I missed you," he whispered sweetly. "I missed you so so much. Third POV. Okay. This is author's note. I'm going to call you YN, aka you, by the terms like you or your instead of she, her, whenever I do third person POV, just saying so you won't be confused. Goldie held your sleeping form tenderly in his arms, looking down at you in adoration. He was so relieved to find you safe and sound. He thought he might die of pure joy. You just looked as beautiful as he remembered, even though it was obvious that you had slept little since they disappeared. She has had nightmares every night since you've been gone. Goldie looked up with a scowl at Jack, who looked at him with a bored expression on his face. She'd scream in her sleep and cry and beg for Springtrap to stop hurting you all. She hadn't slept since the day she last saw you. Jack informed, looking worriedly at the sleeping girl. Goldie gazed down at you, the bags under your eyes, evidence of Jack's claim. You did end up falling asleep so suddenly while you were talking, and as soon as Goldie had picked you up to carry you out of the room since you couldn't see, your head leaned softly against his chest, and he felt his heart warm at the fact that you cared so much about them, even though he was still very worried about your well-being. Goldie glared up at Jack, suspicious clear in his voice as he asked, "What happened while I was gone? Tell me the truth, Marionette. Was she hurt?" Jack scowled at the golden bear, hating the name that he had been called by, then hissed, Had it been you left behind, I would have made sure that you didn't make it out without more than a few broken bones. But BB told you we would never hurt her." Goldie growled and looked back down at you. You looked so peaceful while you were asleep. He was so grateful to be able to hold you again, and just seeing your face made him the happiest person in the world. He had never been one for genuine love before you had come along, and he was grateful that he had been lucky enough to ever meet you. More so, to be as close to you as he was. Jack looked on in envy, not remembering a single time in his life when he felt so furious. Whatever chance he might ever had with you was gone now. With one of the originals back, and the other surely soon to follow, there would no longer be any need for you to be around him or the other toys. He wanted to rip the blonde in front of him to bits and pieces. If he only hadn't come back so soon. If only. Those two little words repeated in a loop in Jack's mind, driving him mad. If only Goldie had waited a little longer to come back. Maybe he would be the one holding you right now. If he hadn't been so horrible to you during your first few nights back, then maybe he stood a chance. If only he acted on his feelings earlier, maybe you wouldn't be so fast fading from him. If only. But now it was over. He wanted so badly to tear the blonde apart and steal you away, but he couldn't. He couldn't bear to see you so distraught over the originals again, and he would never be able to forgive himself. How could he ever obtain your forgiveness again? After he had finally gotten on good terms with you, he refused to do something like that ever again. He absolutely wouldn't do it. He allowed his heavy eyelids to shut, retrieving swiftly back to his box in solitude, wanting to completely erase you from his mind. He couldn't grieve over your love anymore, so he decided that it was best to forget you and remain in his box for as long as he possibly could. He couldn't bear the burden of carrying any legitimate feelings for you in his heart as long as he knew you would never return them. The impending darkness surrounded him, and he allowed himself to drift off to sleep, off to a land where he might actually have been able to call you his. That is low-key kind of sad, bro. Chapter 28. Your POV. I let out a lengthy yawn, opening my eyes slowly. Scanning the room tiredly, I realized that I was upstairs in my house. Laying in my bed, I groaned quietly as I tried to sit up. Emphasis on tried. I looked down at myself to see that a strong arm was wrapped tightly around my waist, pulling me back onto somebody's chest. Looking over my shoulder, I saw Goldie laying down beside me, breathing softly in his sleep. His face was relaxed, his lips slightly parted, his golden, messy bangs covering his eyes. I smiled sweetly at the sight. I was so happy to have one of the originals here with me again. The bruises and cuts on Goldie's face had disappeared. his once pale skin now returning to its normal hue. He did, however, still have dark bags under his eyes. Some of the sedatives probably still in his system. I turned around in his arms to face him, and Goldie let out a groan in protest as I moved around in his hold, tightening his grip and pulling me closer to his chest. I just hummed in content, leaning my head against his chest and with my eyes closed as I waited for him to wake up. Lying here with Goldie helped me calm my nerves, as if just his presence alone fought away all the nightmares that I'd been having since they disappeared. Just being able to hear his heartbeat filled me with so much joy that I almost felt overwhelmed. If Goldie was okay, then it was a good bet that the others were too. Just knowing that at least one of the originals had made it out all right gave me hope beyond belief. Goldie would surely be able to get the others out, wherever Vincent was keeping them. His ability to teleport made the task much easier, and then we'd all be together again like we were before. I smiled, drifting back to the happy memories of the originals as I closed my eyes again. I sat there in comfortable silence, the sound of Goldie's steady breathing easing my worries. Sighing in content, I tried to fall back asleep. Not long after, Goldie let out a low groan, pulling me closer to him. I opened my eyes and looked up at him in curiosity. One of his eyes peeked open slowly, revealing one of his sky-blue orbs as he gazed at me lazily. "Well, good morning," I chided quietly, a small, happy grin on my face. He took a deep breath before answering groggily, yet kindly, "Morning, Dove." I think he tried to smile, but he might be a little too fatigued to do so. "I've been waiting for you to wake up." I laughed lightly, catching Goldie's attention. "I'm a little stuck here." I gestured to his arm around my waist, and he looked at it tiredly, but he didn't move it. Instead, he looked back up to me, both of his eyes now open, though only slightly. He still looked so exhausted. Goldie and everyone else wasn't entirely human, and their bodies are much stronger and much less susceptible to pain or illness. How much of that sedative did they have to give him to keep him asleep for so long, and to give it to him again every hour? I'm guessing that just one of those doses they gave him would probably put any other person into a coma-like state, and he and the originals had been gone for a few days. If they gave it to him every hour, then he must have had at least 72 doses of that drug. No wonder it's having such an effect on him. I'm surprised he can even manage to keep his eyes open after all that he's been through. Goldie looked down at me with concern. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, frowning slightly. "Have you been up long?" "No, not at all." I shook my head. "You could have just woken me up." Goldie stated casually, "I wouldn't have cared, you know. I'd never be mad at you." I frowned at him, pouting almost angrily. "As if I would have! You've been through a lot, and I couldn't even do anything to help you. The least I could do is let you get some sleep after all that." Goldie was silent, staring down at me through half-lidded eyes before he gave out a sigh, closing his eyes and nuzzling his face into my hair affectionately. "I love you." I closed my eyes, humming quietly as he ran his fingers through my hair. It was quiet for a moment before Goldie spoke up. "How did you sleep? Did you have any nightmares?" I smiled faintly, before answering truthfully, "No, none at all." He returned my smile with his own, giving a small sigh of relief. "I'm glad." Pausing, I suddenly realized something funny. I don't remember telling Goldie about the nightmares. Wait. I looked up at him confused. "I never told you about that. How did you know?" Goldie looked at me with an almost irritated expression, before facing me with tired eyes. "Jack told me after you fell asleep." "I fell asleep at the pizzeria?" "You did. I brought you back home right after, though." Goldie replied with a nod of his head. Goldie closed his eyes again, letting his chin rest atop of my head. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Do you mind if we stay here and sleep for a while longer?" I gave a small sigh, then closing my eyes as well, snuggling up closer to his chest. "Not at all. I think we both could use some more rest." He only gave a soft hum in response, and we both fell asleep again. The next time I woke up, Goldie wasn't with me. I was about to go looking for him when I heard my phone buzz on the bedside table beside me. Picking up on one hand and rubbing the crust out of my eyes with the other, I saw that I had several text messages, two of them being from Jeremy, and one from a number I didn't quite recognize. It was currently 11:40 a.m. Hey, we're gonna be late for work today. We got into a little car trouble. Mike's fault. From Jeremy at 2:51 last night. 41 last night. We're here. Where are you? From Jeremy at 5:15 earlier this morning. Well, that explains why they weren't there last night. I thought with a little frown. But if I wasn't there when they arrived, then how early did I leave? I shook my head with a sigh, then looked at the final message. Wan, this is your number, right? It's Cece. Where did you go? Bonbon, Mingle, and Fred are bloody messes in the office. Jack's missing. BB won't stop crying. You're missing, and I have no clue what happened. Where are you right now? From unknown at 5:23 a.m. I felt color drain from my face as I read her text. Bonbon? Mingle? And Fred? Did Goldie do that? A bloody mess in the office, I murmured, my voice low. My own blood ran cold. So it must have been Goldie who was in the hallway earlier last night. If the toys knew who he was, why did they react the way they did when they saw him? I would have expected the reactions to be because of Vincent, not Goldie. Though, from what I remember, Fred and Bonbon aren't especially fond of him because of my first night back. Goldie was more than capable of doing that to the toys, but why? It was so unlike him to act so violently nowadays, even towards the toys. The first night back, Fred and Bonbon weren't a bloody mess, though they were unconscious. Goldie wouldn't just do something like that out of the blue. Was it because of the influence of the drugs Vincent gave him made the shadows give him? Whatever it was, I need to head to the pizzeria and make sure everyone's all right. A loud thud coming from downstairs made me let out a small yelp. Distracted from my previous thoughts, I looked around and remembered that Goldie wasn't with me. Did something happen to him? I quickly shot out of the bed, dropping my phone in the process as I raced downstairs towards where the noise was coming from. Making my way into the kitchen, I noticed a mess of golden hair on the floor out of the corner of my eye. My eyes widened in alarm, and I ran over to Goldie, face down on the floor, unmoving. Goldie? I nearly screamed, turning him on his back, shaking his shoulder quite violently. He remained unresponsive. Goldie! I cried, my eyes welling up with tears as I tried desperately to wake the blonde. Please, please wake up! Goldie had just gotten back from what seemed like an eternity, the others still far out of my reach. I wouldn't be able to handle losing any of them all over again. He began to stir. Okay, where was I? He began to stir. I froze, my hands jerking backwards away from him as I watched Goldie's chest rise and fall. He let out a low hiss in pain, his hand twitching slightly as he tried to wake up. Slowly, but surely, his eyes opened and he looked over at me. Yen? He questioned quietly, his voice strained. He managed to put his arm behind him, trying to lift himself up, and I quickly rushed to help him. I helped him move over to the cabinets under the sink, letting him lean his back onto something sturdy for him to keep himself upright. I kept my hand on his shoulder for support, and he lifted his hand up to my head with a pained groan. It was silent for a while, and I was too worried that he would pass out again if I said anything, and I unconsciously held my breath. Goldie looked at me, his eyes dull. What happened? I don't know, I whimpered quietly. I was upstairs in my room, and I heard a thud, and I came down here and I found you lying on the ground unconscious. Are you okay? He took a deep breath, looking at me with tired eyes and letting his hand fall limp by his side before answering. It must have been from the sedatives. I guess they still aren't out of my system. I must have passed out. I'm sorry I worried you. Worried me? I shrieked, lunging towards Goldie and wrapping my arms around him in a tight hug. You scared me half to death. I thought I lost you, damn it. Goldie's body went rigid, and he tensed up at my words. He was frozen in place for a moment. But before I felt him relax and put a hand on the back of my head soothingly, the fingers of his other hand rubbing small circles on my upper back in a comforting sense. I'm sorry, he repeated in a quiet tone. I should have been more careful. I shook my head. Backing away from Goldie with a sigh, I looked at him worriedly. Can you stand up? I think so. I should be fine, Goldie stated, putting his hand on the kitchen counter above him and slowly lifting himself up with a groan. Once he was standing up at his full height, his head tilted to one side, and his neck emitted a loud cracking sound. and he let out a small wince. Carefully, Goldie let go of the counter and slowly moved over to the kitchen table, placing both of his hands down and leaning over it for support. He let out a sigh, his golden bangs covering his eyes as he looked down. Surely that was an eventful morning. I frowned. It's about to get more eventful. Goldie looked up at me, his eyeshadow blues now bright with curiosity. What does that mean? I have to get back to the pizzeria today, I said quietly, looking away. And why's that? Goldie spoke in a low tone, and I looked back up to him to see with a serious expression on his face. His eyes narrowed. I was silent for a moment, then spoke up hesitantly. I wanted to check on the toys. Now, it was Goldie's turn to be silent. The air in the room grew uncomfortable with tension, and I bit my bottom lip nervously. I may have made a mistake telling him that I wanted to check on the toys, not that I needed to check on the toys. I clutched the bottom of my uniform shirt tightly, in an attempt to keep myself from shaking because of the anxiety I felt. You want to check on the toys? Goldie asked suspiciously, his sky blue eyes now a dark sapphire. I looked down at my feet before mumbling out an excuse. Cece, she found my phone number in my file. She texted me this morning, a little before 5:30, and I was reading it before I came downstairs to find you. She said that Bonbon, Mingle, and Fred were hurt, and it was pretty bad. If they didn't heal on time for the pizzeria to open, then I might get in trouble for letting the animatronics get hurt on my watch, and I might not be able to work at the pizzeria anymore. I looked up expectingly at Goldie, to find him looking away with a scowl on his face. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, then turned to me again. All right, he said defeatedly, but I'm going with you. I only gave a small nod. Goldie and I stood at the entrance of the pizzeria, watching through the glass doors as kids ran around the building and made a mess. I had to change out of my uniform into more casual clothing, and Goldie wore black jeans, dark gray sneakers, and a gray t-shirt with a dull golden hoodie that covered his ears. He looked at me warily. Are you sure you want to go in? Yes, I'm sure, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. Goldie opened the door and we walked inside towards the party room. The place was packed, as usual, and I felt immensely relieved to see Cece, Bonbon, and Fred in their animatronic forms on the stage. Well, that was until Goldie spoke. Those animatronics up there aren't real. Goldie whispered to me softly, his eyes never leaving the animatronics. I looked at him in slight alarm. What do you mean? Those aren't the real toys, the ones that we know. They're backups created if the real toys malfunction and can't perform. The first pizzeria that you know, the one where we met you, had the same thing. How do you know that? But they aren't the real ones. Goldie's eyes looked solemn, and he hesitated before replying quietly. I'll tell you another time. But just know that the animatronics you see up there are not CC, Bonbon, and Fred. I looked up at the stage with concern. If they aren't the real toys, where were they? Those other animatronics are only used if the toys malfunction. Did they not heal? If that's the case, then why was CC replaced too? I suppose you want to go looking for them? I turned back to Goldie with a determined expression on my face, and I gave him a nod. He only sighed, and we headed towards another room. My heart was racing in fear, both for the toys and for the fact that Goldie was with me and would be highly suspicious of my behavior towards them. What Foxy said to the toys that night, it was obvious that the others weren't able to hear. Should I tell him what Foxy said? As soon as Goldie realized we were going to the cove, he stopped. I hesitantly turned around to come face to face with his suspicious gaze. Mangle doesn't perform, Goldie stated almost irritably. Why are we going to check on him? I fiddled with my thumbs nervously before and then said, excuse me, my English. I fiddled with my thumbs nervously, then said, Mingle might know what happened to those three. I was just going to ask. Goldie raised an eyebrow, then dryly laughed. You're gonna ask? Of course, because he's gonna give you an answer without trying to take advantage of you. Listen, I could definitely beat him if he tried anything, but that doesn't mean we should do anything too crazy. I looked at him with a small pout, feeling slightly hurt by his statement. I don't think that it was crazy. You didn't have to say it like that. Goldie's face dropped quickly, and he began to sweat nervously. I didn't mean it like that. I gave a small huff and began walking towards the cove again. Goldie followed me behind without a word. It only took us a short while to get there, and I looked up warily at the cove. Would it be possible that Mingle wasn't even in there? I stood outside the cove quietly, staring at it for a few minutes while questioning myself on what I should do. Before I could come up with anything, the curtain moved slightly. From a hole in the curtain, I could see a familiar golden eye staring at me. As soon as he noticed I was looking at him, Mango quickly moved away from the curtain. I frowned. Why would he run from me? It wasn't like him to be so mysterious like that. He was always so cheery and I don't know how to say that word. Hesitantly, I stepped up to the curtain, turning back to Goldie. Please stay out here. He gave me a worried look. Are you really going? Yes, but I'll be okay, I said quietly. He looked uncertain of that. Be careful. I'll be right in if anything happens. I looked away, pushing aside the curtain enough for me to get through. I stepped inside. It was dark, hard to see, but I could faintly make out Mangle's silhouette sitting against the back wall with his head down. I slowly stepped closer to him, then whispered in a soft tone, Mangle? He didn't move. I decided to stay still. Cece texted me. I started quietly. She said about you. Bonbon and Fred were hurt. I was worried about you. Mango lifted his head, only a little bit, his bangs covering one of his eyes, but the other seemed to glare up at me. He looked angry, yet sad. His eyes, that burned a bright amber, now were dreary and dull. What are you doing here? I jumped at the harsh tone in his voice. Why was he so angry with me? I'm sorry, I stuttered breathlessly. Did I do something wrong? You have one of the originals with you now. Mangle sneered, his orbs now burning a fury gold. You shouldn't be here. It suddenly clicked. He wasn't angry at me. He was angry that Goldie had come back. He was jealous. That realization brought to mind the night the originals attacked Mike and Jeremy. Even though their animatronics were physically stronger than the other people, they were sensitive emotionally. Cece had completely opened up to me about her past and feelings barely a day after we got on good terms, and Jack practically over the moon with joy when I said I forgave him. They turned from very emotional reserved to very open with their feelings in the span of literally not even an hour. I knelt down beside him, reaching out to touch his shoulder lightly. Mangle, get out. I moved my hand away from him quickly, looking at him in surprise. Please, I begged, continuing softly. We're friends, Mangle. I wouldn't. Mangle caught my wrist in a death grip, making me let out a wince. Get out! I made no move to pull away, but said in a quiet and calm tone, Please let me go. That hurts, Mangle. Oof. He continued to glare, his grip tightening. Mangle! I repeated, my voice slightly rising in alarm. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw two icy blue eyes appear behind Mangle. This fucking... I'm sorry. My heart stopped beating as I saw him reach out to grab Mangle's neck in a chokehold. Goldie, don't! I yelled. Mangle, turning his head slightly around to face the blonde, was shocked. Goldie paid me no mind, and if looks could kill, Mangle would have been reduced to ashes on this point. Neither animatronic moved. Let her go. Goldie growled out lowly, his tone dangerous and dripping with venom. Slowly, Mangle released my wrist but kept his gaze on Goldie. Take her and leave. Mangle barked, malevolence clear in his voice. I don't know where the others are, and I don't fucking care. Leave and don't bother me again. I stared at Mangle in shock. What happened to him? Goldie held Mangle's gaze a few seconds longer. Then he looked at me. Why, let's go. He wasn't taking no for an answer. I looked back to Mangle pleadingly, only to earn a fiery and unforgiving glare. With a small whimper, I hung my head low, and Goldie helped me to my feet before we quickly exited the cove. Chapter 29. Your POV. Goldie watched me carefully as I quietly sat on top of a large box, my gaze in my lap. I could tell he was curious as to why I tried to be so friendly with Mangle, but I didn't really care at the moment. After that confrontation with him, Goldie led me to the storage room for some privacy and to calm down after being so shaken up. I would never expected Mangle to act like that. It was like he was a completely different person. He had gone from being like a best friend to me earlier last night to hating me, even though as though he never wanted to see me again. I understood that they didn't like the originals, but I never thought it was to that extent. It wasn't really even jealousy at this point. Wyan, Goldie spoke up quietly. Tell me the truth. Why did you want to go see Mangle? I kept my head down, and I refused to look at him. There wasn't anything I could say that would excuse the way I've been acting towards the toys. I could feel his gaze on me strongly as he spoke again, this time more lowly. I don't think you expected him to act like that, did you? My hands curled into fists, and I tensed up in an attempt to keep from shaking. I remained silent, knowing very well Goldie had already knew what had been going on. You went into the cove alone, instead of asking me to go with you. You insisted on it, and he was hurting you. You didn't call for help, and when I did show up, you begged me not to hurt him. I bit my lip, trying to keep myself from letting out a sob. Before I realized it, Goldie was standing right in front of me. You became friends with them while we were gone, didn't you? Whatever wall it was that I put up to keep from spilling everything crumbled to dust at that moment. I'm sorry. Goldie let out a deep sigh, wrapping his arms around me in a hug. I clutched onto his shirt tightly, afraid that he would leave once he knew everything. I know that they've done so many bad things, I hiccuped, tears freely streaming down my cheeks. Then continued quietly, but they protected me while you were gone, and I missed you so much, and they comforted me, they apologized, and they worked so hard to get me to forgive them. Goldie didn't say anything. He just listened quietly. I know that I shouldn't have been so nice to them after all they've done to you, to the others, to me, but it's fine. Goldie interjected softly. I'm not mad at you. I looked up to him with confusion clear in my expression. You're not? He shook his head. No, I'm not mad at you. So I was worried about this for nothing? I looked into his sapphire orbs to find no hint of sarcasm in them. He was being sincere. So he really wasn't mad at me? At all? Goldie only smiled. That's just like you. You're just a very kind person. I mean, you forgave me when I certainly didn't deserve it. I frowned up at him. I knew what he was referring to, but that was in the past. Well, but that was different, I retorted, earning Goldie's curiosity. Even back then, I knew you wouldn't ever do something like they did, Jack and Mangle. He closed his eyes in thought, then said quietly, that still doesn't excuse what I did. The others were more willing to hate me for the rest of our immortal lives, but not you. I was nothing but a nuisance to you, yet you still showed me kindness. Goldie opened his eyes again, a soft smile returning to his face. If you really think that the toys deserve your forgiveness, then I won't judge you. I, personally, still don't hold them in the highest regard, but I trust your judgment. Goldie lifted a hand up to my cheek, gently wiping away my straight tears. And I looked up at him gratefully. We stood there comfortably, until I noticed Goldie's expression suddenly turn cold. Why did he attack you? He asked with a suspicious tone. If you forgave him and you got along, then why did he try to hurt you? I really wish I knew the answer to that question. I honestly don't know. I mumbled quietly, looking away. I wish I knew. They were fine last night, up until Fred started acting weird and told Mingle to get me out of the office. We left through the vents and Mingle left me in a room and then you found me in. At the time, I thought it might have been Vincent again, by the way they were acting. I never expected it to be you. Goldie's face lit up with realization, and then he scowled. That explains it then. What? I asked quietly. Explains what? They're being hostile towards you because they don't like us. That must have been why Mingle acted that way, Goldie stated, then sighed before continuing. They know that you're more close to us than you are to them. And since we don't get along, they expect you to have to choose between us. Since we've known you longer and are closer to you, they think that you choose us and never talk to them again. You picked up all of that just from what I told you? I asked in slight shock. He nodded slowly, then gave a sigh. When you clearly have nothing to do, Oh, excuse me. When you have nothing to do for so long, you learn to read people more clearly. Mingle thought I didn't want to see him anymore, so it wasn't that he was jealous. He thought I had abandoned him. Jack disappeared while we were talking last night, after you fell asleep. This all explains why he was acting so out of character, Goldie mumbled, trailing off. It seemed like they'd grown fairly attached to you. What was I supposed to do? I tried talking to Mingle, but he hadn't listened at all. Was that also why the toys weren't performing today? I shook my head. I have to go find them and talk to them. Goldie looked down at me expectantly. I know that you want to go find them, and I'd leave to give you time alone to talk with them. But after what happened with Mingle, I'm concerned about what the others might do. I looked down. I know, but I still want to try. Goldie nodded his head slowly, and we separated quietly. I still don't fully understand why the toys would be under the impression that I had abandoned them. But I'm grateful that Goldie was willing to help make me help. Oh my gosh. I'm grateful that Goldie was willing to help me make things right. Had any other of the originals showed up other instead of Goldie, I highly doubted they would be as understanding. Goldie hadn't been directly replaced by any of the toys, and he wasn't torn apart by them or by the workers for spare parts. He wasn't going to hate the toys as the others were. The original's hatred towards them was so much more personal. When the toys first came around, Goldie wasn't necessarily opposed to letting the others fight them. He wasn't on anyone's side. He only hates the toys now because of what they did to me and what they caused. He has nothing personal against them. I wonder if the others would be as forgiving as Goldie. I mentally sighed, knowing that it would never happen. Looking hesitantly up at Goldie, I decided to question him about it. Do you think they'd be mad at me? I asked softly, my voice barely a whisper. Goldie looked at me warily, studying me cautiously. He was silent, and I knew what his answer was before he even opened his mouth. He gave a deep sigh, then looked away, running a hand through his dirty golden locks. I'm not sure, though I doubt they'd be happy. The toys were already prepared to go back to fighting with the originals. They were ready to be enemies with me again. If I tried to fix things and we became friends, then what would the others think when they returned? It was clear that the toys had no intention of being friendly with me anymore. Would it just be better to let things stay this way? The originals wouldn't know any about this aside from Goldie, but he was never one to share things like this openly. He wasn't an idiot. The toys could tell the originals, but what would it matter? The originals have no reason to believe them anyway. They just think the toys were lying. I could easily pretend that nothing had ever happened between the toys and I. Having second thoughts, I glanced up at Goldie with a serious expression across his face. I sighed quietly, sort of. He gazed at me knowingly. You don't have to make peace with them. It's okay. It might actually complicate things more if you try to patch things up with them. Goldie rolled his eyes as he read my expression. And I'm not saying that because I don't like them. I already told you. I trust your judgment. Do whatever you decide to do. I'll be there. I'll be here for you. I'm just stating the obvious. I shook my head, then looked to him with a worried gaze. What do we do about the others? Where are they? He closed his eyes, leaning his back against the wall opposite me. I highly doubt I could teleport there again with the way I am now, much less teleport back with someone else in tow. I wasn't able to teleport immediately back here when I first woke up. It was hard to even keep my eyes open. It took nearly all the strength I had left to make it back. And going nearly twice in one day for the originals? I don't think I could do that right now. Goldie's expression turned dark, and his lips were pressed tightly together in a straight line. It's okay. I walked over to him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. I don't want you to push yourself too hard. I know you're worried about them. So am I. He opened his sapphire eyes slowly, many different emotions swirling around in them. I feel like it's wrong, unfair, Goldie stated quietly, his voice on the verge of cracking. The others were never a bother to you. If anyone deserves to be with you here now, it certainly isn't me. I felt my heart break slightly at his words. Did he really feel that way? Goldie scowled, staring down at the floor, his eyes slightly watery. I know damn well that Freddy and I aren't close. Hell, we tried to kill each other plenty of times before, but he's still my brother. I know I didn't get along with him or the others before you came along, but I can't help but worry for him. He's still my family, damn it. I stared at him in pure shock. How long has he felt that way? How come I never noticed? I wonder why, girl. Goldie, if anyone deserves to be safe and happy with you here, it's not me. I was horrible to you, as where the others were always kind to you. I just can't fathom that I'm here now, but they're with him, and I'm too weak to do anything about it. He paused, his harsh gaze softening as his eyes began to water. They gave me a chance even after what I did to them. To you? I can't even return the favor. What good am I? Stop it. I lunged forward, wrapping my arms around his torso. He froze, taken aback by my action. Stop thinking like that, I whispered. The others forgave you and so did I. That's all in the past now. The others are glad to have you around. Freddie, too, I stated with confidence, tightening my hug. They're not mad at you, not one bit. If they know that you're gone now, then I'm sure they're happy about it. But they're happy about it. Goldie slowly wrapped his shaky arms around me, his voice croaking out, What reason do they have to be happy that I'm free and they're not? That I didn't try to go save them just before I left? I sighed. I'm sure they know that there was nothing you could have done before the shadows came back to give you another dose. There wasn't enough time. Goldie was silent. They know that we're going to get them out of there. Anyways, I stated hopefully, smiling faintly. Besides, they know it's easier to do with you being free, so we should get back for them as soon as we can. Goldie hesitated, tightening his grip around me before murmuring quietly, You're right, I'm sorry. You don't have anything to apologize for. He sighed, pulling away from me slowly. We should go find the toys now. Who knows what they're up to? The longer we wait, the more likely it's going to be harder to get through to them. I looked down. I wanted to so badly to go back and try to make things right with Mangle, but I knew he wouldn't listen the way he was now. Would the other toys be as hostile towards me? Suddenly an idea came to me. Let's go try and find Cece first. If we can, that is. Goldie paused, looking curious. Why Cece? Wasn't she the one that hated you the most? Well, yes. I said it quietly, but she got over it relatively fast. Actually, we ended up getting along after a few days. Bonbon, I only really started getting along an hour or so before you came, and the other toys immediately warmed up to me after I said that I forgave them, especially Jack. Goldie only nodded. Okay then, let's go find that prostitute chicken. He began to walk towards the exit, and I stared at him after him in shock. It was so unlike him to say anything like that, especially not repeating something that I said. Not like that. I mumbled. You remember that? Goldie stopped, turning back to look at me over his shoulder with a devilish smirk. 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 I remember a lot of things. Goldie gave me a quick wink, and continued his way out of the door, chuckling darkly to himself. What was that? After about an hour of searching for Cece, as discreetly as we could, I gave out a loud sigh. I can't believe we still haven't found anyone yet. Seriously, are you sure that the animatronics are on the stage aren't them? Goldie rolled his eyes. Of course I'm sure, but has it ever occurred to you that they might have just left? I paused, turning around to face Goldie with a worried expression. What do you mean, left? Well, they might have just set up replacements so that they could go somewhere else for the day. They may not be in the pizzeria. Goldie stated, almost scoffing at me. I gave him a worried and anxious glance. Why was he acting so strangely today? It's almost like he's a completely different person. Goldie's normally very polite and kind. Very gentlemanly, I have to say. During the time we were searching for the toys, he would occasionally give me a certain look that unnerved me, like a predator watching its prey. He had an unusual smirk on his face the whole time, and would make very snide remarks. I shook my head, mentally sighing. Maybe it's just the drugs making him act weird. They'd be sure to wear off sometime soon, so I guess it'll just pass. Hello, Earth to my little dove. I looked up to see Goldie grinning down at me, standing fairly close in front of me. We gonna keep searching, or are we just gonna go home and have some fun? Goldie questioned. The malicious glint returned to his eyes. I backed a little away from him. Um, are you okay? In a blink of an eye, Goldie's arm snaked around my waist, his hand resting on my lower back as he pulled me to his chest, his other hand lightly resting on my cheek. There was a notable red hue to his usual blue-colored eyes. Goldie? What? I blinked, as if nothing ever happened. Goldie's eyes returned to their normal sapphire blue, filled with slight worry. What's wrong? Goldie asked, concerned. I just stared at him stupidly. Goldie paused, realizing how close we were, and jerked backwards, letting me go. His face burned a bright red. I'm sorry, he yelped out, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. I still don't know what got into me. Goldie looked down, almost in confusion. His eyebrows furrowed slightly. Goldie? I asked again, this time more worriedly. He didn't look back up, only giving a small sigh. Oh, so there you are, little night guard. Before I could even turn around to look at him, Goldie darted in front of me, his arm stretched out between Vincent and I to protect me. Vincent grinned. Looking at his new human appearance, I felt utterly sick. He looked exactly like Springtrap, only with a slight purple hue due to his hair and his ears. His clothes now a darker shade than they were before. Vincent's luminous eyes excuse me. Vincent's luminous eyes were the most noticeable thing that had changed. It was like Springtrap wasn't in there at all. He looked at Goldie, an amused expression on his face. So you actually made it out, huh? I had suspected as such. I was quite surprised to find you missing when I went to check on you, Goldilocks. Goldie let out a low hiss. What are you even doing here? Vincent feigned hurt. That's not very nice to greet someone. Haven't you have any manners, Fredbear? Fredbear? Goldie tensed at the name, slowly backing away from him. He grabbed my wrist, tugging me away. We have to leave. He whispered in my ear. Vincent laughed, almost having to hold his stomach. So, you didn't tell her then? I looked to Vincent warily. Who was Fredbear? Shut up! Goldie growled. Don't say another fucking word. I gazed worriedly at him. Goldie, what's he talking? His head snapped around to face me, fixing me with a fiery and unforgiving glare. You don't need to know, he barked, his eyes a now menacing blood red. Red? Why are his eyes red? I froze, now more scared than relieved to have Goldie with me now. Vincent's laugh only grew louder. That's rich. Goldie tightened his grip on my wrist and grit his teeth as he glared daggers at Vincent. His teeth, they looked oddly sharp, almost like razors. I was distracted from my thoughts when a sudden, sharp pain in my wrist made me scream. Goldie, stop! He immediately let go, turning around to face me with absolute fear evident in his red eyes. I held my wrist with my opposite hand gently. It was bruised black and blue in the shape of a handprint, and looked swollen. I looked up at Goldie in utter shock. He glanced down my wrist, then back up at me. His face went pale. Why, Hen, Goldie whimpered. A small sapphire blue hue now appeared in his orbs, though only faintly visible. Oh, looks like you ended up being a monster after all, Fredbear. I warned you. Vincent nearly sang, Goldie not paying him any mind. Goldie was frozen in place, unable to utter out anything that would explain the situation. You thought she changed you? Vincent laughed, taking a step closer to us. You're nothing but a murderer. You can't escape from who you truly are. You're wrong, I boomed, surprising both of them equally. Vincent merely smirked. My offer still stands, little night guard. His raspy voice chimed, his hand extended towards me. Come with me, he says with complete confidence. I know you may not exactly like me, but as you can see. He looks to Goldie with a twisted grin, then back at me. I'm the lesser of two evils. If you stayed with the poor old Fredbear here, then you end up dead within a month, at the most. Stay with me, and you won't have to fear from these little monsters anymore, from those little monsters anymore. Goldie said nothing, and refused to even look at me. My only response to Vincent's question was to flip him off. Goldie's not a monster, I hissed. This is your fault. I know what you did, you bastard. Vincent looked curious. Oh, do you now? Don't play dumb. He chuckled darkly, sticking out his tongue playfully. You got me. Yes, little night guard. He gives a small sigh, putting his hands up. I'm the one who caused Fredware to... Well, he gives me a wink. You'll see. I scoffed, ignoring the pain in my wrist as I stormed up to him, grabbing his shirt collar tightly. What did you do to the others? Where are they, Vincent? His eyes glinted with mischief. I suggest you try and get them back soon, unless, of course, you'd rather them become like poor little old Fredbear. Or maybe even... I shoved him back harshly, making him hit his back against the wall hard. He didn't even flinch. He only glanced over my shoulder to Goldie, his luminous eyes full of malice. Maybe you'll come back after you killed the little night guard you loved so much. I look forward to it, Goldie. With that, he left, his laugh echoing down the dark hallways as he disappeared. Worriedly, I walked over to find Goldie still frozen in place, his hands simply fallen limp at his side. His back was turned to me. Slowly, I walked up to him and touched his shoulder lightly. He tensed up even more, as if it were actually possible. Goldie? I started quietly, my voice soft. It's okay, it's not. His hands curled into fists as he shook, keeping his gaze down at the floor. I gave a small sigh, walking around to face him. I felt my heart break as I realized he was crying. I wrapped my arms around him to comfort him, but he backed away. Please, he begged. Please get away from me. I shook my head and tried again. I'll hurt you. I did hurt you. Goldie sank to his knees in front of me, still refusing to look up. You'd be better off with the toys, he croaked out. I was terrible to you in the beginning, and I still haven't changed. I knelt down in front of him, only making him more nervous and jittery. I don't have any right to love you. I cupped his face with my hands gently, making him look at me in shock, as I pressed my lips onto his sweetly, rubbing his cheeks comfortingly. I closed my eyes, awaiting his reaction. I didn't get one. Pulling away in disappointment, I spoke. Sorry, Grabbing the back of my head gently, yet firmly, Goldie pulled my lips back onto his other arm wrapped around my back to press me closer to him. I gave a silent, content sigh, tilting my head to my English, bruh, is gone. Tilting my head to deepen the kiss and running my hands through his golden locks. He held me tightly, as if we would both shatter if we were to let each other go. After what was probably several minutes of bliss between us, we pulled back for air, Goldie resting his forehead on mine as we tried to catch our breaths. Goldie murmured out, Why did you do that? I was quiet before speaking up truthfully. I'm not really sure. We stared into each other's eyes for what seemed like a few minutes before I realized, your eyes. They're blue again. He looked away, then gave a small sigh. I guess you just bring out the better in me, then. I smiled. He looked back at me, then at my wrist, his eyes clouded with regret, and he hesitantly reached out for my hand, before pulling his own hand back. I frowned, grabbing his hand in mine as I looked up at him. He looked drained. I'm sorry. Don't be, I said, giving him a small grin. But I'll definitely get over it if you kiss it better. He gave a faint smile. Anything for you, little dove. Not much else was said between us for a long time. Just us being in each other's arms was good enough for us, for now at least. Oh my goodness. The other originals still have a chance. Author's note. Oh, this is a whole bunch from the author. It's mainly about Goldie and whatnot. If y'all want to read it, I'm a little share pause it here while Y'all can read it if y'all want. Anywho, I did not expect this to be as long as it was, but you know what? Made it worth the read. My question to you guys is, what do you think is going to be happening with the toys? Are we going to be able to talk again? Are we going to be able to get through to the toys and help them realize that, hey, I'm not just going to be friends with you just as a backup and then just leave you as soon as my original or my quote unquote original friends come back. Though they're more than friends, but we're right now we can call them friends. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have you guys just as like a backup friend because that's kind of messed up. Even in actual human life, that's kind of a little messed up. But you know what? I digress. Anyway, y'all, that's my question to y'all. Y'all think she gonna be able to get through to them? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you guys did enjoy this though. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more amazing videos, guys. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, evening, or wherever y'all are at. Bye and peace, y'all. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to pop in here and say I hope everybody has an amazing holiday, amazing Christmas Eve, Christmas, and a little early Happy New Year. I want to give you guys my deepest thank yous, and I'm just really grateful to have you guys, and I hope I can still y'all will still come alongside me in this very interesting YouTube journey through the years to come. I hope you guys have an amazing day, week, month, year, trillions of years. I just wanted to tell y'all personally thank you so much. I love and appreciate your guys' support, and I hope to be posting for you guys very soon. I love you guys so much. Please be safe. Bye and peace for now, y'all.